The students to the left and right all looked at Lu Sheng with a sadistic gaze, as if looking forward to a good show, and even Lu Kaiming gave him a self-seeking look. For nobody students like him and Lu Sheng, the chances of being called up by the teacher in class were the same as winning the lottery. There is no telling what kind of bad luck Lu Sheng had today, to be picked in the practical combat class as a sparring partner. Lu Sheng quickly calmed down. If he was called on, he was called on. And it wasn't like he had never been picked before. Then, he stood up and walked toward the middle of the field. When Lu Sheng stood up, Zhong Zhenqiu was stunned. At that moment, he had an illusion, as if he was looking at a fierce tiger slowly getting up from its slumber. The natural temperament that exuded from Lu Sheng's body made Zhong Zhenqiu almost think that what he was looking at wasn't just an average student, but a warrior who had experienced countless battles striding towards him. Teacher. Lu Sheng walked over to Zhong Zhenqiu and calmly greeted him. Zhong Zhenqiu noticed the strong, smooth, and well-defined muscle full of strength revealed under Lu Sheng's visibly short sleeves, and couldn't help but light up. How come I didn't notice that there was such a good seedling in the class before? Zhong Zhenqiu looked up and down at Lu Sheng with a slightly pleased look and asked, "What is your name?" Lu Sheng. "What was your score on the last blood chi value test?" Lu Sheng thought for a moment and replied truthfully, 0.802. Only 0.8? It's a bit on the low side. It doesn't look like it. Zhong Zhenqiu frowned. Could it be that I have misjudged? Zhong Zhenqiu shook his head, but didn't continue to think too deeply, then arranged, "Spar with Yang Yifei, use the martial arts techniques I just taught, and after the end, I will point out any shortcomings in your movements." Understood. Lu Sheng nodded, then walked over to Yang Yifei and stood still. Yang Yifei's expression was relaxed. He nodded slightly at Lu Sheng, and reminded him, "My blood chi value is 1.22 already, so I might strike a little too hard later. You should be careful." Lu Sheng didn't react, only casually nodded. However, the students at the bottom all exclaimed in a lowly voice, "Damn it! Yang Yifei's blood chi value is 1.22, I haven't even reached 0.9. He's too strong, I'm afraid he can be ranked in the top 10 in his grade." As expected of Yang Yifei, Yang Yifei heard these admiring voices. He obviously felt a bit flattered, and with a faint, confident, and calm smile on his face, he said to Lu Sheng, "Are you ready? Let's go." "Yes." Lu Sheng nodded. "Here I come." Yang Yifei shouted, and his entire body sprang forward like a cheetah, dashing towards Lu Sheng. Even Zhong Zhenqiu, who was watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but nod his head slightly when he saw his performance. As for the students at the bottom, they were already well prepared to be amazed. One by one, in the eyes of all the girls, sparkles began to appear. Lu Kaiming turned his head slightly and looked at Lu Sheng with a worried expression. Then, in the next moment, boom, a figure flew out from the middle of the field, flying out 5 to 6 meters away, before falling hard on the ground. "Yang Yifei, you're so handsome." "Yang Yifei," the admiring voice of a girl rang out just in time, making it exceptionally abrupt. The girl shouted only halfway, only to notice suddenly that something was wrong. Everyone around was silent, staring fixedly at the middle of the field, with an expression she couldn't comprehend. The girl looked back carefully, and her entire body was instantly frozen. Only to see at the edge of the field, the pale figure holding his chest was the male god she worshipped in her mind, Yang Yifei. As for Lu Sheng, he was standing in the middle of the field with dignity, and it appeared as if he didn't even take one step. Silence. The field became eerily quiet. Everyone looked at Lu Sheng in a daze, and Yang Yifei, who fell to the ground from pain, couldn't believe his eyes. Lu Sheng, with a single move, sent Yang Yifei, a genius with a blood chi value of 1.2 who was ranked in the top 10 of his grade, flying out. They doubted whether they were dreaming. Even Zhong Zhenqiu was stunned. Then he quickly realized one thing. He indeed didn't misjudge. "Hurry and get 2 people to help Yang Yifei go to the infirmary." Zhong Zhenqiu quickly gave orders, and only then did the others wake up as if they were dreaming and took action. Then he looked at Lu Sheng's eyes again, as if he was looking at a monster. "Teacher Zhong, Lu Sheng wanted to explain to Zhong Zhenqiu that it wasn't his intention to not use the fighting techniques he taught. Instead, when Yang Yifei was rushing over, his fighting instinct drove him to do so subconsciously. By the time he reacted and wanted to cooperate with the sparring, Yang Yifei was already sent flying. who knew he was so incapable of fighting. Stop, you come with me for a moment. Zhong Zhenqiu waved his big hand, ordered Lu Sheng and breezed out the door, not caring whether the practical class was over or not. Lu Sheng could only obediently follow. Only after the two left did a loud chatter explode in the field. Holy shit! Was Lu Sheng high on drugs? Why was he so strong? Even Yang Yifei couldn't beat him. That guy is Lu Sheng, isn't he? The Lu Sheng we know, right? Yang Yifei has a blood chi value of 1.22, but even he couldn't beat Lu Sheng. Just how much is Lu Sheng's blood chi value? Hiss! Amidst a wave of awe and chatter, Lu Kaiming's mouth was wide open, staring dazedly in Lu Sheng's distant direction. He was still confused. Didn't you say that your last BQV test score was 0.8? And blood value test score was 0.8? And do you think you look like a 0.8? Zhong Zhenqiu just brought Lu Sheng to the office, and stared at him with burning eyes. Lu Sheng was a little helpless and said, Teacher Zhong, you said that you were asking about the last test result. Zhong Zhenqiu was speechless for a moment, and after thinking about it, he said, I'll test you again now. Lu Sheng nodded his head. A few moments later, the test results came out. Zhong Zhenqiu sat on his butt in the chair and looked at Lu Sheng with a complicated look that was hard to describe in words. It was as if he was in shock, yet there was joy in it. There was a bit of surprise in that joy, included with a trace and doubt and disbelief. Doubts about himself, doubts about the truth, a complex look. When was the last time you tested? Zhong Zhenqiu took a deep breath, trying to calm down his mood, and opened his mouth to ask Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng thought about it and returned, the last monthly test, about less than a month. If we include the private test, it should be about a week ago. Less than a month ago. Zhong Zhenqiu didn't know what to say. He took another look at the test results. Blood chi value, 1.532. Combat power index, 192. Both were jaw-dropping figures. It already exceeded the standard for level 1 martial artists. Although it was said that the testing apparatus in the school was not as accurate as the martial alliances, the margin of error was not too great, and the true score was basically the same. That is to say, the student named Lu Sheng standing in front of him now could already be said to be an official level 1 martial artist. He was just under 18 this year, and there were still more than 200 days before the college entrance exam. That was to say, in their Beihe 3rd middle school, and the combat class that he, Zhong Zhenqiu, conducted, there was an actual 18-year-old level 1 martial artist. Zhong Zhenqiu had trouble digesting this. Though it must be said that an 18-year-old level 1 martial artist wasn't a very shocking sight from the perspective of the Dragon Kingdom, or even Beihe City. However, in their Beihe 3rd high school, this was an absolutely, no compromise top genius, without a doubt. At least among the current batch of college entrance examines. There was no one who could reach this height, they weren't even in the same league. Moreover, Zhong Zhenqiu saw more to this. What he really valued was the combat power index of the student named Lu Sheng in front of him, and his performance in the actual combat class. CPI of 192, exceeding the standard value by more than 40. Level 1 martial artist 1 should know that before becoming an official level 1 martial artist. No, before officially becoming a level 3 martial artist, the CPI value of a martial artist basically followed proportionally to BQV. Because the BQV represented speed, strength. The more your BQV, the more destructive power you had. The stage between level 3 and level 4 was the threshold, and many people stagnated at this stage to train their bones and muscles. At this juncture, the role of martial arts techniques really began to manifest, and the martial artist's combat power would take a relatively large leap. Before that, techniques may bring various gaps in actual combat, but the increase in combat power is still very small. Take Zhong Zhenqiu himself, for example, a level 2 martial artist. His BVQ was at 15, and CPI was just over 1500, a few points over the standard for level 2. So in retrospect, a martial artist who could beat the standard values beyond the reasonable amount like Lu Sheng, who had easily beat the margin by 40 in level 1, could only be addressed as a monster. During class spar, when Lu Sheng had sent Yang Yifei flying, though others did not see clearly, he did not miss it. The skills that Lu Sheng showcased in that punch, even he felt those were breathtaking. This is definitely a combat-type martial arts genius. At this moment, Zhong Zhenqiu had an incomparably strong hunch in his heart. Our Beihe Third High School has really picked up a treasure this time. Lu Sheng quietly watched Zhong Zhenqiu's eyes flickering quickly. He should be thinking over some problem. After a little tension at the beginning, Lu Sheng had calmed down. Although he was caught off guard by today's events and his strength's exposure. But now that he got to think about it, it was also a good opportunity. It was a good opportunity to apply for a scholarship at school, and with his current strength, it didn't make sense if he wasn't given one. This test also gave Lu Sheng a whole new understanding of his own strength. He had almost reached the assessment standard of a level 1 martial artist, and it was time for him to take the official test. The current Lu Sheng was really too short of money. Zhong Zhenqiu also almost sorted out his mood by this time. With your current grades, you can apply to the school's top class. Zhong Zhenqiu also didn't ask for the reason behind Lu Sheng's BQV doubling nearly in a month's time. It wasn't worth asking. Previously he had been hiding strength. Somebody suddenly entering a period of high-speed development, and the previously hidden talent gradually being developed. These situations had happened in other students, and there is no need to look deeper into it. If he pressed any further, it may also cause the student to resent him. Teacher, I think it's fine for me to stay in my current class, there's no need to change classes. Lu Sheng replied. Zhong Zhenqiu nodded with a complicated expression. He also felt that there was no need. The cultivation of BQV relied entirely on the students themselves, and what the school teacher could teach was only some skills in practical combat. In this regard, Lu Sheng had even surpassed many teachers. Then, if you have any requests that you think the school can help you with, you can ask for them now. Zhong Zhenqiu inquired. Lu Sheng was waiting for this opportunity. I want to apply to the school for the martial arts scholarship, and I would like to get a more free time at school. Lu Sheng brought up the two ideas he had in mind together. The second one came to him on the spur of the moment. Lu Sheng had always felt that the current him staying in school was more of a waste of time. If he could have more time to practice his body refining techniques and explore the dream world every day, his strength might grow even faster. I'll apply for a 30,000 yuan scholarship to the school for you, and you should be able to receive the money within 2 days. The school will hold a meeting to discuss the matter during school hours, but there shouldn't be any problems with that too. After all, you are a genius. Genius should have certain privileges. Zhong Zhenqiu promptly responded to Lu Sheng's request. In addition to that, I can promise you, if you achieve a high ranking in the city by representing our Beihe No. 3 middle school in the college entrance exams, the school will provide you with an additional reward. Before the period leading up to the college entrance exams, you can also ask the school for any material you may need. As long as it's not too excessive, the school will satisfy your needs. And I, too, will help you in every way I can. Zhong Zhenqiu wore a formal expression as he said this, as if he already saw Lu Sheng as equal. After giving it some thought, Lu Sheng was able to understand Zhong Zhenqiu's perspective. For a talented kid with a promising future like him, now was unquestionably the best time to get the cheapest bargain. Thank you, Teacher Zhong. I'm thankful to the school as well. Lu Sheng expressed his gratitude, and after a little thought, he added, Teacher Zhong, one more thing. I hope that my family won't find out about my current grades and the treatment I've received from the school just yet. I understand. Zhong Zhenqiu nodded. Lu Sheng's sudden increase in strength, martial artists may understand, but it'll be difficult to explain to ordinary families. If Lu Sheng's parents found out and questioned him about it, then did something that may affect Lu Sheng's martial arts progress, it'd be something that no one would like to see. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first, Teacher Zhong. Yes, you can go. Zhong Zhenqiu waved his hand and watched as Lu Sheng left the office. A few moments after Lu Sheng left, Zhong Zhenqiu, who was sitting in a chair, suddenly stood up. The calm on his face vanished, replaced with an intense rush of excitement and triumph. Lu Sheng, my Beihe No. 3 middle school has actually produced someone like Lu Sheng. An official level 1 martial artist who is less than 18 years old, with a combat power of close to 200. I'll keep Lu Sheng as a secret weapon before the college entrance exam. After the college entrance exam, I will taunt those from the No. 1 and No. 2 high schools. Haha, I'm getting excited just thinking about those guys' expressions. The principal must be notified of this news immediately. Zhong Zhenqiu walked out of the office with a bright face. The blood nourishment tonic my dad bought me last week cost about 3,000 yuan a set, which is still the most commonplace tonic. Upwards there are also qi nourishing tonic, bone strengthening tonic, energy replenishment tonic. Tian tonic is the alternate I've been using for pills. The most expensive one was even about 15,000 yuan a set. This price is simply way too exorbitant. Zhong Zhenqiu assured Lu Sheng that he could get him a special scholarship from Beihe Third High School, an amount of 30,000 yuan. Lu Sheng originally regarded this money to be quite a lot, but now that he took a look, he realized the amount would prove to be completely insufficient. The 30,000 yuan was only enough to buy 10 sets of blood nourishment tonic and 2 sets of energy replenishment tonic. If Lu Sheng had applied for a first-class scholarship of 10,000 according to his original plan, he wouldn't have been able to afford even 1 set of energy replenishment tonic. Martial arts cultivation, it's a money consumption machine. Lu Shen now understood the things he hadn't before, and the money martial artists like Ying Yifei spent behind the scenes. Children like him and Lu Kaiming who hailed from ordinary families simply couldn't compare with people like them. Being a martial artist from a poor family in this cruel martial artist era was simply too difficult. Lu Sheng also realized the heft of the burden pressed down on his parents. Lu Qinghe is right. With her martial arts talent, if only she didn't have a mediocre brother like him to drag her down, the accomplishments she might have had under her belt would have been even greater than now. It's like how Lu Hai had decided to provide him and Qinghe with 2 sets of blood nourishment tonics each per month, the current limit of the Lu family. If these 4 sets of blood nourishment tonics could be provided to Lu Qinghe alone, the result would naturally be more pronounced. When he thought over it again, the conviction to earn money became even stronger in him. Whether it's for my own cultivation or for Lu Qinghe's martial path, I should work harder. Lu Sheng did not continue to look any further and walked out of the mall. The central mall was quite far from the neighborhood where Lu Sheng's family lived, so Lu Sheng did not take the bus and chose to walk home. With his high-intensity training ongoing, taking a stroll home like this was especially relaxing to Lu Sheng. Today is a golden opportunity for me to showcase my swordsmanship that I've been practicing. I'll go all out today. So childish. You dare to look down on my sword. Wait till I teach you a lesson. Several high school students wearing school uniforms and carrying backpacks jostled and ran past Lu Sheng in a group, rushing into the nearest internet cafe. Lu Sheng stirred a little. A month or so ago, he was just like these people, hanging out at school every day, and the internet cafe after school. It was like fish living in muddy water, blinded by the turbidity in front, muddled every day, flapping in place, no direction, no motivation. Now that he had poked his head out the water, he was clear-headed, and understood exactly what he wanted, and knew exactly where the road from him lay. Do I regret? Lu Sheng asked himself softly. I do not. Lu Sheng's eyes were calm as he answered firmly. It seemed to have given up some happiness, but now he is undoubtedly more fulfilling and satisfied. He seemed to have sacrificed some of his happiness, but he was undoubtedly more fulfilled and satisfied at this moment. At the instant, various memories of martial arts suddenly flashed through Lu Sheng's mind. A large portion of fragmented images swished past his eyes. At the instant, he seemed to have grasped something, and something seemed to have been broken. Lu Sheng's mind became incomparably clear, and something brand new burgeoned in his heart. A breakthrough. Lu Sheng looked at his hands and was somewhat lost in thought. He clearly felt that the bottleneck on hand combat and fist techniques that he had reached by absorbing a large amount of memories before was broken at this moment. His understanding of fist techniques had reached a whole new level. It was a state that was hard to describe. The wheat had been removed from the chaff star. His perception on hand combat and fist techniques had gained a new perspective. Tn, also separating weeds from flowers, meaning something that has been given a new look or dimension. The current Lu Sheng felt that he could perfectly master any of the fist or hand combat techniques in his mind. He could do the most appropriate response using hand combat techniques in different situations. Integration. That's probably what it meant. I heard from teacher in class before that those powerful martial arts masters would gain some astounding insights under certain specific situations and their state of mind. This enabled their martial arts to undergo a huge metamorphosis. A clear heart and a clear mind. This phenomenon is known as epiphany in martial arts. Did I just experience an epiphany? Lu Sheng was not sure. But it didn't matter. He only knew that his strength should have improved again. If he fought the current him and the previous him, the winner would be decided within a few moves. This was the gap brought about by his attainment. Lu Sheng had the impulse to run to the Red River Martial Arts Academy to do another test, but immediately restrained himself. His strength might not change just because he was taking another test. His strength was his own, and it won't run away because he refrained from taking the test in time. Besides, it was getting late now, so if returned home late, he'd be chased out by parents. Thinking of this, Lu Sheng quickened his pace. I'm going back to my room. Lu Sheng put down the dishes and greeted his family calmly, then turned around and went back to his room. What's wrong with Little Saint today? Is it because he's unwell? Tian, Little Saint, nicknamed Zheng Yufan, looked at the rice bowl in front of Lu Sheng. A sturdy zombie was the first to notice Lu Sheng and quickly pounced on him with a low roar. There was no hesitation. Lu Sheng quickly rushed up. He blocked, punched. There was only an exchange of 2 moves before the zombie wearing an unrecognizable style of clothing had its neck snapped by Lu Sheng. A black line of smoke quickly seeped into Lu Sheng's body. A martial arts practitioner, Lu Sheng finished absorbing the memory of this zombie and exhaled gently. My strength has indeed increased. The fight just now gave Lu Sheng a more intuitive perception of his current strength. He had encountered this type of physically sturdy zombie more than once already. This new class of combat zombies were different from the ones wearing jumpsuits. They had varying strengths. Some were weaker than the gray jumpsuit zombies, while others were stronger than the blue jumpsuit zombies. One could barely discern their strengths by observing the minute differences in their physiques. Lu Sheng judged the strength of this zombie and concluded that it was strong. He could even say that it was the strongest out of all the zombies he had encountered so far. Both in speed and strength it was twice superior to that of a blue jumpsuit zombie. Its CPI should have reached the ranks of level 1 martial artist. But even so, it still couldn't last more than 2 of Lu Sheng's moves. The breakthrough I had is very powerful. I can utilize my skills with more ease and less effort. And against those below my skill level, me fighting them would be akin to an adult beating a child. Lu Sheng's eyes showed some delight. After finishing the zombie, Lu Sheng continued to walk forward. He had been walking in the gray fog wilderness for an unknown amount of time, and according to his estimation, he should have been very close to base 1359. According to the memories, base 1359 should have been destroyed under the assault of the black fog and nearly endless tides of foreign beasts. I've also yet to encounter any foreign beasts. Something seems very strange about that detail. Could it be that the beasts have taken the ruins of the base as their dwelling? Or did they withdraw after the base was destroyed? Lu Sheng did not know. Although his martial strength had increased rapidly, the dream world was still a realm rife with dangers and unknowns for him. So far, Lu Sheng did not once die in the dream realm, and he did not know what kind of ramifications he'd have to face if he died here, and he did not want to find out. Along the way, Lu Sheng killed a few more zombies. The martial memories obtained from these zombies quickly filled in the gaps in his knowledge about kicks, palm strikes, footwork, etc., and kept approaching another bottleneck. At the same time, the attainments he'd gained in the field of hand combat had reached a new level, and continued to slowly but surely climb towards a higher level. Just as Lu Sheng punched a zombie's head and was absorbing its memories after having dealt with it, his eyes got transfixed at something. Lu Sheng saw the gray mist disperse and flow like water in the direction directly in front of him. There were silhouettes of crumbling, magnificent buildings that were slowly being revealed as the gray mist cleared. Finally, I've reached it, the legendary base 1359. Lu Sheng's was extraordinarily calm and cautious. There were times when the unknown also represented danger. What's more, Lu Sheng had witnessed the base being destroyed over and over in the hands of the foreign beasts in the memories he'd inherited from all the zombies. That desperate and depressing emotion would always be like a boulder weighing heavily on his heart. Lu Sheng's was fast, but his footsteps were very light. The straggling zombies he'd encounter increased in frequency, their strengths and numbers increasing as he got closer and closer to the base. Lu Sheng had encountered several dangerous auras as he closed in. These were the rare one he'd only encountered a few times. The good thing was that the perception of these zombies did not increase with their strength. so as long he was careful he would not attract their attention. He ran like the wind in the direction of the base. Appearances could be deceiving, though it looked nearby. The distance was more than enough to kill a horse if it ran towards it in one go. Lu Sheng had to run for more than half an hour before he gradually approached the giant city. This was only because he was running at full speed. It can be imagined how big the base really was. Finally, Lu Sheng came to the foot of the giant city. He hid under a ruined wall and looked up to survey the city in front of him. This majestic city was truly displayed in front of him. It was hard to describe just how big this city was. Lu Sheng needed to crane his neck to an angle close to the limit in order to barely look at the top of the city walls. The entire city was surrounded by walls that towered into the clouds. This reminded Lu Sheng of a certain anime that had giant towering walls protecting a city from the attack of evil giants in his previous life. TL, Attack on Titans compared to those walls. In the anime, these walls were considerably much taller. It was hard to imagine that there was any power in this world that could tear open such a solid defense line. But instead, as if to challenge him, he saw huge claw marks on the giant wall that shook him to the core. The entire city, from the outside, looked like a huge broken bowl full of cracks, breakage, and delamination. The debris he was leaning on was one insignificant piece that was knocked off the dilapidated bowl. Thinking about the memory of the desperate scene, Lu Sheng's expression turned grave. Looking at the sight with his own eyes, he understood that the scenes of destruction he had seen in the memories were but the 10,000th fraction of what had really happened. Height determines vision. Those zombies that he could easily kill, and their despair-induced memories, were undoubtedly only minuscule remnant dust of the sandstorm of a greater terror. Base 1359, that is, there are at least 1,000 more bases like this. Base 1359. There should be at least 1,000 more similar bases like this. Where are the rest of those bases? Are they still intact? What exactly have the people of this world gone through, and are there any survivors left? Many doubts arose in Lu Sheng's heart. Thoughts about the origin of this world, about the origin of the dream world, about the mysterious body refining technique and the breathing technique. He took a step towards the giant city. He felt that the truth was waiting for him there. Lu Sheng did not know where the gates to this giant city were located at, so he found a huge rift that was torn open from the top to the bottom of the giant wall, and approached it carefully. Just about 10 meters away from him, there were several zombies of terrifying strength roaming around. Lu Sheng had only stepped in a little closer to them and all kinds of alarm bells went off in his head. He was terribly frightened. Now he felt like a newbie player who had just ventured out of the novice village, who had run into high-level monsters wandering near his location. And right now, any of the small monsters around him had the ability to kill him in a second. The closer I get to the base, the stronger the zombies become. It's hard to imagine what level of combat power these zombies that have me shivering right now had before they reanimated. Lu Sheng sighed in his heart. They had no consciousness, no perception, only a bit of combat instincts left in their bodies that drove them when alerted. This is the first time I've ever seen something that has brought me such a strong sense of danger. These zombies were definitely unimaginably strong masters when they were alive. Lu Sheng carefully maintained the distance between him and each zombie. This way, he managed to reach the foot of the target wall without having to take any risks. This rift was big, but it is still a full 7 or 8 meters high above the ground. Luckily, Lu Sheng now had the strength of a level 1 martial artist, and his body was athletic. With the help of the depressions and nooks in the wall, he easily climbed up to the rift. This wall should have a thickness of more than 20 meters, and yet it was still beaten down to this shape. Lu Sheng walked in through the rift, and staggered. After walking all the way to the inner side of the wall, the reality inside the city was presented before Lu Sheng. All kinds of tall buildings and streets were present. The style was drastically different from the real world where he lived. The streets were scattered with many vehicles that Lu Sheng did not recognize, although the vast majority of these have now been destroyed or were in serious state of disrepair. But on top of this gray mist-shrouded ruins, Lu Sheng could still imagine how prosperous this city once was. The technology here far exceeds from the world outside, and even my previous life attributes to nothing in front of this. Lu Sheng jumped down from the city walls and landed on a vehicle with an appearance much like a rowboat, with smooth lines and a feel of advanced technology. It should be a world with higher level of civilization. Whether it be technology or martial cultivation, they are leaps and bounds ahead of us. No wonder the body refining technique and the breathing technique are so powerful. One must understand that the world Lu Sheng was living in right now only had a martial cultivation history of about less than 300 years. Many aspects were still in the preliminary and theoretical stages. History books had also accounted that when the martial cultivation had just emerged, the most powerful martial arts powerhouse in the world was only a level 5 martial artist. And now, humanity already possessed many level 7 masters, level 8 grand master, and even level 9 martial saints. Such a powerful civilization, and yet defeated under the claws of those foreign beasts. If so, then what would happen to us? Lu Sheng was suddenly a bit worried. In reality, his world was also fighting against those foreign beasts. Even with the continuous emergence of strong martial artists among humans, the space for human habitation was gradually reducing all the time. This is what was broadcasted on the TV news every day. No matter what, the fact that I can come here is a great opportunity. Just because this world has failed, doesn't mean my world failed too. I can still draw strength from my cultivation here, and later, when I'm strong enough, I may be able to diffuse the knowledge I've gained from here. Lu Sheng's eyes became firm at the thought. At the same time, there was an additional burden of responsibility on his shoulders. The shock and impact brought by this devastated remains of a once great civilization was too great. And his outlook had changed a bit. The number of zombies inside the city walls was huge, but their strengths were largely weak, and it scarcely would one encounter a high-level monster. This phenomenon had an simple explanation. The walls protected the vulnerable civilians, and those with strength naturally converged on the front lines of the battlefield. Lu Sheng's exploration progressed much faster inside the walls. He walked into a tall building. It was an ordinary residential building. Lu Sheng randomly found a house and walked into it. There was no one in the house. The house was separated into several small rooms, but the overall space was small. A table was placed in the middle of the living room, and some dishes and tableware lay scattered on the table. Lu Sheng imagined that the family was eating when the end had come. Without warning, Lu Sheng's mood soured inexplicably. The house did not contain any presence of zombies. Lu Sheng guessed that under that horrible black fog, ordinary people might not even be qualified to turn into zombies. It was also possible that they had once turned into zombies, but after long years they were too weak to sustain themselves any longer and slowly decayed over time. Lu Sheng walked into a room and found something like a photo frame on the room's bedside table, but there was no photo inside. Lu Sheng guessed that this might be something like an electronic photo album. After the energy was exhausted, the photos inside naturally disappeared. The remaining room should be the child's room. In the corner of the room was a single crib, as well as a bookcase and desk. Lu Sheng tried to find some items that could record information. But this world's civilization was far too advanced, and paper books had gone defunct, and found no signs of anything similar. Finally, Lu Sheng found a palm-sized, less than half-centimeter thick, gray-colored disc on the desk, with traces of writing left on it. Tian. Hung. Technologies. TL, the character, Tian, translates to sky/heaven, Hung, translate to constant/eternal/persisting. Lu Sheng wiped away the dust on the disc and identified a few small words printed on the bottom of the disc. After reciting these words, Lu Sheng's mind shook from shock. He actually knew these words? The words used by this fallen civilization were exactly the same as the words used in his real world? Parallel worlds? Or is there some connection between the two worlds? Lu Sheng's eyes flickered, and felt like he was onto something. He quickly picked up the disc and studied it carefully. The surface of the disc was smooth, and had no buttons or similar indentation on it. Lu Sheng was not sure what the disc was, so he could study it carefully, and trace through it, inch by inch. Soon, he found a groove in the center of the disc, about only a millimeter deep. Lu Sheng reached out and found that the groove happened to be about the size of his thumb. Fingerprint unlocking. Lu Sheng thought and gently put his thumb into the groove. After waiting for about a minute or so, Lu Sheng was about to give up. At this time, he heard a drop sound, and then the disc in his hand began to emit a faint blue light. The blue light became more and more vibrant, but it wasn't blinding. The dusty, dead room seemed to gradually wake up with the appearance of this blue light.